kind of women that I'm dressing for this award season are pretty no frills and pretty direct about what they want. And I think that because the reason why we're not having a regular award season is such a heightened conversation, that I think that, sure, people want to go for it and they want to celebrate, but it's definitely also too an award season where not being tone deaf and being just really cognizant of like what's going on. And I think that if you're a young girl and you're nominated for Best Actress and you really want to have a big fashion moment, that makes sense. But I think that for most, it's sort of a big important event for our industry, but it needs to be done this year with definitely some sensitivity just to like the overall reason why we are where we are.
That's right, and keeping things in perspective. So I think in the way that certain businesses would do away with their office spaces for good, do you think the pandemic will have a lasting effect on the way stylists do their work?
Yes, I do. I do, because I think that most stylists who are navigating talent on both coasts, which most of us are in some way, shape, or form, and now it's even more than just both coasts. You've got people living in Miami and upstate and in Virginia. People are like, have really kind of gone all over the map.
Yeah.
I think that it's just going to be different. It's just, I think that any case scenario until this virus and the pandemic is like sort of under wraps, that's going to minimize the quantity of people being on top of each other. You know, I think that when we're all together, everybody sort of has that moment where they're like, oh, we're okay because it's just us. But everybody who's just us is around other people. And, you know, we all know this sort of domino effect the whole thing has.
That's right.
I think that like at least the clients that I have, it's safety first. And if the team can be made minimal, they do so. And
that's
you know,
right.
with these ladies, I know what they need and they want. So
that's right.
It's just kind of like working off of images and really working very thoroughly. And, you know, hopefully you're not having to worry too much about like the snow days and, you know, these other
issues that people have to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, now we've had like the nominations are out, and I think it's just going to kind of depend in the next week or so what we all sort of hear as a community of how the show is going to really kind of come together.
How would you personally characterize the way that the pandemic has changed the way people dress? This is another thing we, of course, touch on the podcast, but if you were to give it sort of a name or sum it all up, what has happened to the way that
I think
people dress?
everybody is learning how to find their best self in a more pared down manner. And
I love
think that it's a combination of like having your style and owning your style, and now kind of taking it and leaning into something that's a more relaxed version of it. And I think like the number one thing that I've seen personally as I've gone through collections and had samples come to my house is that there's a lot of elastic waist pants these days, even on like the dressiest of silhouettes.
Higher end, right.
And I think, yeah, and I think the initial shock of what we all went through, like last spring and in April and May and all of that, and how everybody just was like out of their clothes and in their sweatpants, and it was like a whole big conversation. I think now that we all know that this time that we're living in is going to be here for a while, it's sort of like splitting the difference. And it's like, okay, how are you dressing to be waist up? But if you are essentially working from home all day, I mean, I have been, and I'm not in quarantine, but there are days upon days upon days where I'm not even leaving my apartment. Like maybe I'll walk down to like the doorman, right. Or maybe I'm running to like the deli to get more water or something.
Right.
Like this mindset of like, be in your space, don't be around people, bring your own bags. All of that is so relevant that I think that there's actually a very calm way to work, because if you can get on FaceTime and have somebody virtually walk you through a collection and save like 2 days of going back and forth on email and make your selects, or if you're talking about sketches and you're looking at sketches, it's very easy to have 2 screens up and look at the sketches and then have them maybe FedEx you a package that has fabric swatches in so you can feel it. But I feel that everybody's conversation is they might be saying that they're tired of this and tired of that. But this whole new way that we're all approaching our wardrobe and our style, we're definitely leaning into different things, asking questions, editing through our closets, and changing the way not only we live, but also the way we dress and how we relate to our own personal fashion, like what it means to us individually.
Yeah. And really, I mean, FaceTime's effective. Christina, you styled our most recent cover story featuring Rachel Brosnahan, and we had some very detailed meetings over FaceTime to look at everything. It works really, really well. Let's get to a fan question from Lisa. I'm looking to buy about 6 investment pieces to wear the rest of the year. What are your top recommendations for day-to-day wardrobe pieces? You're just sort of talking about day-to-day fashion.
I mean, I have to say that I find that during the week when I'm working here in my apartment, that I love wearing any type of like elevated bottom, whether it's like a silky pajama pant style button or a drawstring pajama style pant. I've actually been really digging into what I already own, and I have like found great old drawstring pants, whether they're from Calvin Klein or from Derek Lam, just like cozy things. I think we're all still sort of now in winter, we're in a layering mode. So I'll usually at any time like have on a tank top or a t-shirt, and then I layer it with like a great cool oversized sweater. So I think maybe it's a nice time of year right now to invest in whether you're more of like a V-neck sweater or over the head, or even maybe it's a boyfriend cardigan that you can just kind of take on and off. I think something cozy and cashmere is great.
I think that's a great tip to share, that, you know, a lot of people are used to leggings. Drawstring pants and a pajama style pant is kind of the chicer alternative to pulling on a black legging, right? I mean, there's so many.
It also too feels a little bit more, you feel a little bit more dressed. Like I can't wake up in the morning and like stay in my pajamas. Like I have to, like, I'm finding now more than ever before, like I get dressed, I put makeup on, and then it's like, okay, you're like dressed for the day now. And it actually helps like your whole mindset and your mood.
Yeah.
I would say that another thing that I feel like we all love at home so much are, at least for me, I love great white button-down shirts or any kind of a button-down shirt. I feel like if you have a Zoom or you just want to feel professional, that there's so many different takes, whether you want like a classic button-down or you want something that has a fuller sleeve or something that you can roll up. I feel like having that white blouse and then a great over the shoulder, you know, like a V-neck sweater, like a fisherman sweater, like from Ryan Roche or Gabriella Hearst, like something like
beautiful sweater,
like that. It's just really easy. I don't think I've ever cared about socks more in my life. I'm
That's
like
so true.
I'm sock obsessed. I scour for them. Crochet, ankle socks,
cashmere,
just knee socks, cashmere socks.
Yeah.
I think our foot attire has changed. I think that brands like Uggs and Birkenstocks and even Doc Martens have never seen more of a response now, because people want to wear shoes at home, but they want cozy. So those would be some of the key pieces.
Yeah, those are great pieces. Margot wants to know if you swap your own closet season to season, or are most pieces you wear seasonless? You're talking a lot about sort of seasonless pieces, but what do you think of this theory of like changing your closet out from season to season?
Well, I feel like we live in such a seasonless world now for the most part. I mean, granted, we have snow in New York this week and it's chillier right now, but I can say that really having a lifestyle that's split between LA and New York, I find that on the West Coast, I'm a little bit more sort of jeans girl, 70s, a little bit more casual. And then in New York, I kind of am like that with a little bit of like an edge to it, sort of. But I think it depends on your closets. I definitely have to say that like I will feature certain pieces in my closet and wear them over and over and over again, and then burn out and put them in storage and bring in a new group. Because otherwise, if it's all in my house, I don't know what to wear, and I'm just so overwhelmed that I literally wear the same thing over and over again. And now more than ever, to where like I'm not going to breakfasts, I'm not going on appointments, it's so much more waist up. I'm finding that like I just want things that are easy, that have like some color to them, and like not wearing like as much black as I would normally wear in the winter right now, because just to like brighten up the face.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's about loose tops. And then I think for girls that are into body conscious, there's so many incredible things that go on with like bodysuits and like stuff that's shapewear worn as clothes. You know, whether you're wearing like a sleeveless t-shirt with a shoulder pad or like a Wolford turtleneck bodysuit. I love nothing more than feeling like editor style and like waking up and putting on like a turtleneck in my jeans and I'm good.
And having the uniform. We talk a little bit about that on the podcast
the uniform,
as well.
Exactly.
Jenny wants to know what your tips are for organizing accessories.
I think, are we talking about like jewelry or like gloves and scarves?
Accessories was the question. So I don't know. I mean, you're right. There's a very big difference between organizing jewelry and so maybe I would say handbags, jewelry, and shoes. I
keep them all in groups. So like wherever I live on 2 levels. And then I have another story on the other coast, but I try to keep like all my gloves together, whether they're in my closet where all my shoes are lined up, grabbing gloves on the way out the door. All of my scarves occupy upstairs 2 shelves, and they're either folded in squares or I tie them in a knot, and I have the knotted ones piled on top and then the color ones piled on top so I can see, pull, and grab.
One question that we got from James was, what are the pros and cons of working in a styling partnership or duo? I think that's a lot more common now than it used to be. Any tips or anything you want to share?
I think that I'll tell you this. I have throughout my career, I have tried that model as well as not. And I think that depending on the type of person that you are and that your colleague is, I personally love the art of collaboration, and I love having somebody to bounce off ideas and have a dialogue, whether it's prepping, whether it's picking designers, whether it's a mood board. It's great to have, for me, it's great to have like that, be able to have a dialogue where you can flesh it out so there can be a very sort of curated point of view. I think that like with any partnership, it ebbs and it flows. And I think depending on who your partnership is, and if you guys have different roles and they're just very determined, or if it's like you both do everything.
That's a good point.
I think it's just really, it's like a little bit of that catch-22 of like not wanting too many chefs in the kitchen. Yeah. Yet at the same time, I can speak to, for my business pre-pandemic,
yes,
having an office in LA and in New York and having 5 people on my team in addition to me, and only so many hours in the day to conquer and divide, that being able to play off is fine. And I think that if you are doing celebrity particularly, that it's just a good idea with your clients to always keep it very balanced. And I think that like, even though maybe one of the 2 people might take care of one more than the other, I think keeping like sort of the camaraderie of like a team energy, I can speak, is important. And I think that partnerships can be incredibly helpful, especially if you're navigating the West Coast and the East Coast in Europe. And, if you're juggling more than 1 or 2 clients, you've got dialogues going with designers, PRs, and brands all over, and it's like we've only got 2 hands. The time. So I think it can work, and it's worked for me very beautifully.
I love the idea of the art of collaboration. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked this earlier in our chat, and I have this question for you too. How many clients are you working with right now for award season, and can you say who you're working with?
Well, I'm not going to say who.
Okay.
But I will say that I'm working with definitely 2 women for the Globes, and I've got somebody who's going to be receiving a Critics' Choice Awards, and I'm kind of waiting to hear what else is going on. I do have some other nominees, which we don't know whether or not they want to go down the road of getting styled.
Yes, yes. Can you share the steps that it takes to get a client dressed for such an event like the Oscars or the Golden Globes? Can you take us through it from the first conversation to the day of the event? What is the chain of events that sort of occurs in that time period?
In the times we're living in now.
Well, no, I think just generally speaking, you know, what happened?
It's a very big conversation, but again, I think the key component is who you're working with. And do you have somebody who has already been slated to have potentially nomination buzz? Because if they have, it's probably a conversation in terms of their look that started a couple of months ago, because they know that they're going to go the distance and go to multiple awards. So a stylist is able to actually start ahead of time. If it's more about like the possibility of being nominated in a category, usually it's a little frustrating because you have to wait till the nominations come out. You know, it really, again, depends on the client. Are you doing custom? Are you starting from scratch with sketches? Are you going and finding a dress that you love and having it recreated in a different color with a different neckline? You know, I have so many different clients that work differently. Some, it's normally always about doing custom. Other, it's about knowing sort of a formula and a style of how we dress them and kind of going down the rabbit hole of choosing 4 or 5 designers and then narrowing it down to like 3 and then narrowing it down to 1. I would say that the best part about doing this job now today, as opposed to even say maybe like 9 years ago, is at this time that we're in right now, people don't want extra fuss. And it doesn't mean that they don't want glamour. It doesn't mean that they don't want to get dressed up. But I do think right now that most people are leaning into wanting to do things as easy and as seamless as possible. And if you've had a relationship with your stylist for a long time and you always get delivered the goods, I think this is a great, you have a collaborative conversation and you live in a little bit of trust and you just try to see how you can navigate it, you know, as easy as possible, and making sure that what the client wants is 100% delivered.
In this season, will you be with any of your clients on the day of their event to just prep them in that way?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Next question, fine jewelry. Is it nerve-wracking borrowing fine jewelry for red carpet and events and shoots? What is your thought about that?
My thought is, whenever you can possibly have a guard,
yes,
with the jewelry brand or somebody from the jewelry brand be a part of the process, you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches. And I can also say, having learned, you know, basically every case scenario that you can as it relates to jewelry, I think it's really, really good to be clear about what the vision is that you want with jewelry and try to go to 1 or 2 people that can deliver that look. And I think that like these days of like 10 guards and 10 different jewelry brands, no one wants to do that world anymore. And when you think about just even like moving these pieces around a lot, it's like, if you know you want something really classic and American, go to one brand. If you want something a little bit more, you know, intricate and European, go that brand. And I think that really it is a stylist's job to style, but to also to know how to edit. And I feel like in general, these days of like more is more is more is more, having a little bit less now, still having a point of view, still having plenty of options, but just bringing it in. Because I can also say, you watch your clients and sometimes there is that moment where seeing like all of this beautiful jewelry is a lot. But if like, you know, you want something close to the ear and you want something modern and you don't want to put anything on the neck and you want to just do a bunch of like layered rings, then call in earrings and the layered rings.
Right.
And I say this with this energy because I've caught myself even sometimes saying, oh, but can we at least try this and try that? And it's great, but I think that there is something, all stylists will know this, that can be incredibly challenging when it comes to fine jewelry. And it's a lot of little pieces and it's a lot of little plastics and it's a lot of all of that I think as little amount of time as the actual stylist actually has to hold the jewelry,
the better.
Best life.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people may not realize is that when you're talking about jewelry of that caliber, it has to be packed a certain way, and there's a whole sort of science to that.
Yeah, it needs to be signed. It needs to be packed a certain way.
Yeah.
Stones can't be like rubbing against each other.
Right.
You can have one little plastic bag that one earring goes in, and then that bag goes in with the earring.
Right.
And it's incredibly time consuming. Unpacking jewelry and packing it, I mean, it's the most beautiful and exciting part. But I think that unless you are starting a collaboration because you know you found a beautiful statement necklace and you want to create a dress around that,
a moment.
I think that any advice that I would give to like up and coming stylists is find a way how to put yourself through all of the tests to deliver what you need. Less is more. And I can tell you that there's a styling duo from back in the day. I won't go into names, but they were famous for going to a client's house and being like, here are 6 dresses, pick one. And that was the way they worked. They weren't the stylists that were coming to your house with 3 racks of 40 dresses. It was a point of view. It was a fit that would work. It was a style. And I think that it's a very important job, but I think there is a way to do it to where that can be kind of like at a minimum.
I love that advice. What does your relationship with designers themselves consist of during a time like this? Can you describe that? Are you in close contact to get sketches? How does that work? Tell people how that works.
It works every different way. You either go to a designer directly through their office. You go through a designer through their PR company. If you have a relationship with the designer, you can go directly to the designer and just say, hey, I'm working on this. Are you interested? I think it's a very personal, I think it's like personal style. I think that we are stylists, but we're actually fashion publicists.
Yes.
So I think everybody has their own sort of flavor to how they do what they do. Some people are just very methodical and keep everything on email. In my company, we're on email and we're on text. Again, I like to try to have like a point of view about who I'm doing and what I think are like the core relationships that I want to reach out to sort of see what it's like. And then obviously, sure, it's great to have a conversation with the designer, but if your designer is a part of a big house and you work with the PR person and it's a dialogue about I want A, B, C in a sketch, sometimes, again, I'm really learning like, how do I get there quicker? That's like the best way for me. And
yeah,
sure, I have quite a few brands where I may not be on text directly with the designer, but I'm on text with the designer's right arm. And
yes,
this way, instead of having to lose time, it's just sort of better off to like know where you're going and you know how to navigate. Like if you know you need corset, you know, who are the brands that can really make a great corset?
Right.
If you want something cut on the bias, who are the brands for that? If you want something that's made out of like a techno stretchy fabric, where are you going to get that? And you just, it's like, you know, you have to pick.
Yeah, the menu. What is your go-to for shapewear?
I use everything. I have to say that I use Spanx would be a big hero. I use Commando. We use all kinds of like the lingerie companies, whether it's La Perla, Agent Provocateur, Chantel. I think what the girls, what the Kardashians are doing with Skims is brilliant. I think that they understand sort of the whole smoothing thing.
It's a thing.
We use all of it. What I find I'm trying to find these days the most for my clients is shapewear that they feel good in and doesn't feel so thick and scuba suit. And I will say that all the brands that I have mentioned all have a different sensibility in a hand with the fabrics that they use. But I think it really just depends. Some women really want to be sucked in and they want to feel like they can't breathe. Other women want to be smoothed down, but they want to be comfortable. I can tell you in my kit now for intimates, I have everything, every type of Spanx, Spanx that go to the knees, Spanx that are half, the Skims one, which is one leg short, one leg. I love the Union Jacks, which is the full body suit with the bras. the underpinnings are everything. And if you're not
They
using
really are.
underpinnings, you're probably working with a seamstress who is constructing
Building it
everything
for
in the
you.
inside.
Yeah.
Just to like smooth and stretch. It's a lot of illusions, but at the same time, I am a firm believer that if the client isn't in something that she feels comfortable in, it's going to show on her face and it's not going to matter. I don't care if like the corset's so tight. It has to be that tight because that's the feeling she wants. And shapewear these days is nuts. Everything is out there. And
Everything.
constantly on the look for camisoles and bodysuits, down to finding a new one this morning. So
Love that. Do you find that most clients love or loathe wearing shapewear?
both.
Both?
Some won't get dressed without it, and some don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. On the podcast, you talk in depth about how you aim to tell a story with the looks that you create. Can you share some examples of your favorite famous looks and the stories they told? What comes to mind there?
I think that probably when you kind of think about like the big nights, it would be like Emmys, Oscars, Vanity Fair, like those kind of events. And usually it's become like, it's like the final part of the conversation where you've been working with a client for X amount of months and you know, like the carpets are coming, and whether you're doing custom or it's couture or it's a nominee who's always wanted to wear a certain shape or a certain silhouette and you deliver that dress to them. I think that the story is a very personal story for the person wearing the dress. And I think that it's sort of an unspoken conversation that a stylist and the client have. And you know at that moment when they're walking out the door and they're getting in the car, that like, God willing, they get to the carpet on time and like nothing happens with the dress. But the moment is more about sort of like, it's like telling a story. And it's just almost sort of like when you watch any of these shows that we're also engaged in now on television, it's just like you see this woman, and whether it's a tuxedo or it's a ball gown or it's something really, really short, you see the woman is telling the story and what she's wearing. And
Yes.
it's I think you can really feel that when you see an actress win an Oscar and she can be wearing a totally chic column dress with a big statement necklace, or she can have on a big, very sort of intriguing, you know, crazy gown with nuances. It's just, and you can tell the women who step out onto the carpet and they know they're telling a story.
Yes.
You see it in the minute they step on the carpet and they throw their hem out and they get into the position. I always have this dialogue with my ladies when we have the time and the questions asked, that when you get out on the carpet, that it's your own private moment. And regardless of who's screaming at you or what's going on, that if you are somebody who loves fashion and has poured yourself into the whole art of the glam and the hair and the makeup and the tinting the eyelashes and your nails and like this and the haircut, and it's preparing for a role. And it's almost sort of like when you step out on the carpet, that is sort of your offering of, here's my moment.
Yes.
Or like that song, it's a look. So
look, who usually weighs in on whether something is flattering first? Is that you, or do your clients, who are probably so well versed in what works?
Collaborative. It's really a collaboration, because sometimes it's hard to see it until it's on the body. Mm-hmm. So sometimes something can get like sort of nixed or criticized, and then you put it on and it's like, oh my God, look how amazing this is. I think that that's the biggest lesson that like I've never stopped being aware of, is that don't judge anything on the hanger, because the simplest, most plain looking dress on a body can be a whole different moment. And then you sort of style it out in your mind of like, let's pull this off the shoulder. Let's do a big earring. Let's pull the hair over to one side. And that's kind of, I think, also to a fun little anecdote about like how you're telling a story, because it is all one story. And you can tell when the story is all one movement, and you can tell when like the hair people and the makeup people and the stylists were like not all on the same page. And that's always such like a sad moment. It does happen, but
yeah, that
hopefully hopefully like not often.
Yes, that can equal a fail for sure. What are your favorite colors this season?
Um, colors.
What are you responding to? What are you loving?
Yeah, and I will tell you that sort of that burnt, and maybe this isn't for a gown, this is just like a color in general. I'm loving that sort of like rusty persimmon sort of
Me
browny
too.
color.
I just
I'm
bought sheets
loving
from
that.
Parachute in that color.
Loving that. I'm really have a soft spot right now, which is maybe why I'm wearing this shirt today. I'm really loving pink. I feel like just lately there's something about pink that just feels very fresh and very like vibrant. I'm also loving dark purple, like a really sort of like neon-y purple a lot. I will say I've been really into brown. I don't know why.
Me too.
And I'm not into brown dresses and brown gowns at all.
Right.
In terms of just like, even like that look from the shoot where Rachel was wearing like all camel and had the camel vest on it. Like,
right.
I love that. I love that kind of feel.
Me too.
And then also too, I would say like that, that sort of tobacco color.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. We talk about this on the podcast. Who are your go-tos for evening shoes and bags? On the podcast, we talk about how Prada shoes never hurt. It's so true. Who are your, evening shoes and evening bags? Who are your go-tos?
I would say that in general, I will always go to Stuart Weitzman.
Yes.
Kind of first and foremost, because there's just not a shape, a style, or a silhouette. And his commitment to comfort is number one. That I know that a lot of women are just like Louboutin, Louboutin, Louboutin. I don't know what it is, but most of my women really, really want shoes that are going to do what we need them to do, but that are comfortable. So I would say I love Gianvito Rossi, Brian Atwood, like in the day. I mean, if platforms make a real comeback, I mean, that man is like the master of
because they can be very comfortable.
Yep. I would say.
What about bags? Evening
bags, bags is such an interesting conversation because so often on the carpet, sometimes they carry them, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they get handed off to the publicists. And I doubt there's going to be a world in virtual styling where there's going to be a lot of emphasis on the bag, unless, you're rocking like a cool t-shirt and you've got the new Bottega Veneta bag. But I would say that, usually a lot of the designers that I work with, they'll have bags. So I'll use the bags that come with the look, or I love Fendi. I think Fendi makes incredible bags. Really simple. I feel like there's a trend thing that goes on with the bags and it kind of comes in and out. I feel like now if a bag is kind of a cool thing and it kind of goes with the look and it kind of makes like a fashion statement, it's a little bit more interesting than just like a clutch.
You talked about this a little earlier, but for important events, do you like having more than one look in the running? Do you ever sort of 1 to 2 more that a client can choose from to wear at the last minute? How often is that the case? Or do you usually get to a place where you're zeroing in on one full look that's going to go the distance?
It depends on how much work the hero look needs. If the alterations are really straightforward and the client is just madly in love with the dress, no questions asked, like 100%, no breath at all, that maybe they have like a different opinion, I generally feel having a backup is just an intelligent way to work. And if you can have a backup with the same brand, it's usually really, really easy. If it's a backup with a more elevated brand and it's somebody who's nominated, it can be a little bit trickier unless you say, well, if she doesn't wear to the Oscars, she'll wear it to Vanity Fair. I think it really has a lot to do with having a very transparent conversation with the brand that you're working with about where the client really is with the dress. And don't tell the brand that it's a done deal if it's not a done deal.
Yeah,
because you never know on the day of. I mean, just when you think it's safe to say we're done, we're set, and then something happens, it's just there's no harm in having a backup, and I just think it's a smarter way to work.
Yeah, I think that what a lot of people may not know is that ultimately, yeah, it can all change at a moment's notice, whether it's a cover or a red carpet look. Have any of the major outfits that you've created completely changed at the last minute and ended up being a huge success? Can you think of any examples of that, Christina?
I mean, I can
Any
just tell
last
you, I
minute
can just
wins?
tell you that these dresses have a mind and a life of their own. And it is always a very big celebration when you, I don't know how to say it. I think what I've really learned as the years have gone by is that the less you have to put your client through to get the finalized product, the better. And I think that when you do your fittings and you know you have to like conquer, you know, maybe fixing an armhole, fixing a corset and fixing the hem, like unless it can't be avoided, try to do it all at one time, because like hopefully your seamstress, which is a stylist's most important tool, understands what you want and what your client needs. And I just think that if you torture your client way too much before they wear the dress, by the time the day comes for them to wear the dress, they're kind of over it.
They're over
And
it.
I think that a stylist job is complex. You know, we wear a lot of different hats, and you're also dealing, you know, in my case, primarily with women, and you have to deal with the women and how they are with their bodies and how they are on different days and how it just sort of ebbs and flows. And I think unless you've got a very tolerant and very patient client, or like you're going to the Met Ball and it's some crazy dress with like wings that are going to like light up and this and that, that it's just better to try to make the process as seamless as you can. I think it's a box that every actress wants to be able to check. And I know that oftentimes they know that they're going to have a second fitting or a final fitting, but I really do think the stylist needs to be the mind reader and figure out ways how to cut corners and get to that final sort of moment faster. Even with sketches, like if a brand gives you 15 sketches, don't show your client 15 sketches.
Yeah, be
Pick
the editor.
5.
Yeah.
Pick 5 and have a reason why. And then if they say, well, God, I was really hoping to see something with the neck, and you remember that one sketch got put away. But I think that the most important thing is that having a point of view helps your client feel confident. When you have too much going on and they're not sure what they want, it keeps that sort of dialogue of like, well, I don't know, what do you think? And I think that is really what our job is to say, I think this. And then if you're like, but what about, be porous to it, but like, you got to sort of have like an idea. And I think it just makes it makes the conversation easier. Now, if you have a client who needs 10 red carpet looks, then you have a lot more room to play. But sometimes you've got an actress who during an award season is only going to like maybe the SAG Awards or is only going to the Golden Globe Awards. So you also have to like help them understand in normal times, like what sort of the differentiation is between the different carpets in terms of how dressy or this and that, and you just sort of go that way.
Yes. I want to let you get back to it. You're so busy right now, but in closing, what are you most excited about this award season and this year in working with your clients?
I am looking forward to things just continuing to open up. I'm looking forward to discovering how to best have some type of like tactile and connection with my clients, even if like we're not going to have that playtime in the room, which is such a magical dynamic between a stylist and a client when they get to come in and they can put their phones down and you get to play and create. I really am a firm believer that things will open back up, but I also think that a lot of about the way that we were doing this definitely had a lot of room for change and an easier way of working. And having done this for a long time, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how this can look. And stylists, we work crazy hours. Like we don't know 9 to 5. And I would say that anything that can help us figure out how to execute this craft and this passion and be as fastidious and detail oriented, but work like this, I think it's great. I mean, I'm now, having had my business like really, really big with many, many people, I'm kind of now going back to a little bit more boutique, and I'm so humbled by how much I appreciate just like, oh, the shoes just arrived, let's unpack the shoes, instead of it just always being like
A whirlwind, yeah.
just going a little bit more methodically and finding out just how, you know, how can we work easier? Because if we can work easier, all of these other things are going to start to get better, like the pandemic, the waste, and, you know, all the waste involved with fashion, and the planes and the plastic and the this and the that. So I am honored to be able to still be a part of this and see how all of us as like an industry can deliver fashion and beautiful visual moments, but also have a little bit more of a hand and a power in behind like what the bigger conversation is right now, which is why we are all here anyway.
That's right. That's a great place to end episode 65, Story and Rain Talks, featuring Cristina. You can hear more of our conversation. That's episode 65, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great season.
Thank you so much, Tamara. The
Have a
whole
great
experience with you guys has been awesome. You guys
I
are
love it.
wonderful over there.
And we love working with you too.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye, everybody.